So I could manually go through and put in 9 lines adding these in, but that seems tedious and I'm lazy. I mean efficient. Let me go ahead and use for loops to do this. So for control space, I'm going to be going up to button.length. So I need to create the button in the first place. I'm going to have another for loop that goes through button 0.length. And I need to create, at the I and J spot, a new J button. So I'm going to use I for my row, actually, and J for my column. So I'm going to say button J I is a new J button. And for now, I'm just going to put in as the text the J and I spot, just so I can tell initially where they're being placed. So this actually creates a J button, puts it into the array. Next, I should add it into my center container. So I take the thing I want to add it into, say add, and then which thing I'm actually adding. So now I have this layout that is in a grid, and it's got a whole bunch of buttons in it, and it's kind of sitting in memory doing nothing. I haven't actually added it to my frame yet, so I can't see it. So I need to add this to my frame. So I'm going to add center to my border layout center. Hey, that's cool. I should put in a comma here. That will make it so I can tell the difference between those. 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, 0. So J is my column, I is my row. Very cool. It turns out it doesn't matter which way you do it as long as you're consistent throughout your code. Watch out for accidentally reversing those later on. All right, so now I've done that. Another thing I'd like to do in my layout is I'd like to actually add labels up at the top, which have to do with naming the players. So in Java, in GUI TicTacToe, the other thing that I am required to do is have a label indicating your name and the number of wins you have, and then a label indicating the name and number of wins the computer has. So I need to make it so that in my project I have a label up at the top, a J label, which has my name, and then a second one for the second player. J label. Let's see. I guess I will make it so that player X is on the left, whoever's playing the X position. New J label, X wins colon 0, I guess, because it starts at 0. I need to import that label. Our O name is a new J label. O wins. And eventually I'm going to need to put in a spot that I can change the name on these players. For now, I'm just going to start with this. Container north, I guess, is going to be a new container. I'm going to make another grid layout for the north container and then put these two guys in it. So now that I've added in the center, let's take care of the north. Let me put in a comment here. Center grid container, so that when I'm looking through this, I'll be able to find it more easily. And more importantly, if I look at this a year from now, I know what the heck I was doing. North container. So I've created the two labels. North needs to have its layout set. New grid layout. For now, I'm just going to do 1 by 2, 2 by 1. I'll try it out and see what happens. I can never remember which one's the columns and rows on grid. Next, I should add in the labels. So north.add xname, north.add oname. And finally, north is just sitting in memory, so I should add that to my frame. Add north to border layout dot north. Oops, I got the columns and rows mixed up. 1, 2. There we go. So now I have my X-wins and I have my O-wins, I have my grid layout. Perfect. Okay, so now that I have these things, how do I make them actually start to interact? So I'd like to make it so that when I click on the button, X plays or O plays. To have your code do something once you have a button, you actually create something called an action listener. So whenever you click on a button, that's called an action. And once I have an action, I can tell it to do something in my code. In order for the code to actually do something on an action, it has to do something that's called implements. Implements action listener. So this is called implementing an interface. Whenever you do something like have it listen for actions, or eventually have it listen for mouse presses, or have it run multiple threads at the same time, you're going to end up having to implement one of these interfaces. So Action Listener is basically an interface that tells the computer what to do if an action happens. So if I import this guy, notice it's still complaining, and there's a reason why. So if you have this line of code, implements Action Listener, you are basically promising that somewhere in your code you have a method called action performed. If I do this, this quick fix, add unimplemented methods, it'll actually fix it. And what this has done is, down here at the bottom, notice that this method appeared. Public void action performed action event. I could have actually written this line of code out and it would have gotten that error to go away. But basically if I say implements action listener, I must put in an action performed event. This is saying that when something gets clicked on, do this method. Now, I don't know which one of these guys was clicked on though, right? So let's say I click in the middle one. How do I know that that was the one that was clicked? Well, it turns out there actually is some information in this guy here, this action event that they've named E. I'm going to name this event because I feel like that's a better name. So this action event actually has information on who was clicked on. It can tell me which button. And so I'm going to use that to figure out which button it was. Now, at the moment, even if I click on these buttons, it's actually not running this event. There's another line I need to have, which happens up here. Button ji dot add action listener. This. When I say add action listener this, what's going on is it's actually going to run the action listener in GUI TicTacToe. You could have some other code that was running it, another class, for example, some other project. So when I click on something here, it runs something in one of my other projects. We're going to have self-contained code, so this special keyword this means run the GUI TicTacToe action performed down here. So now I need to figure out which one of these guys was clicked on. So I'm going to create a temporary J button, which I'm going to name current. And then I'm going to walk through my grid of J buttons and see which one of these J buttons matches this guy here, the event. So if I go for button.length, and then for again, notice that we're going through these arrays pretty often. Button 0.length. So if the event source, so this is the source of the click. So when you click, event.getSource tells you which object it was that actually fired. And if that equals button ji, then we know which one of these guys was clicked on. current is button J, I. And then I can go through and say, all right, maybe I want to set the text to X, for example. Let's move that inside here, actually. So now I know that I've got this particular button. And now it does something. Very cool.